Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about wall anchors and fasteners. So most homeowners are using picture hangers and wall anchors for pictures and mirrors.
Towel bars.
Great. In fact, you really need to have kind of specific wall anchors for towel bars if you don't want them to tear out. But some of the earliest people who were hanging things on walls...
Egyptians.
I'm sure. But no, they were doing a lot of carving.
Yeah.
Chisels and hammers, man. But the Greeks and Romans, there's evidence that a lot of their paintings, they were creating these paintings on wood panels, and they were hanging them on their walls in their homes about 500 BC. And then in Pompeii, so that ancient Roman town near Naples in Italy, that was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius.
Yes.
So Mount Vesuvius went off, and it buried this town in 15 to 20 feet of hot ash.
Yeah, everybody knows that. I think they just did a movie on it not that
Really?
long ago.
But they uncovered, so this is 79 AD, and completely buried it. So in 1599, they found a bunch of paintings on the walls, and they uncovered part of Pompeii. But the dude who found this, the paintings were so erotic in nature that he buried it back up. So Pompeii stayed buried until 1748, when an architect found them, uncovered them, and so I mean it was just an amazing find, you know, and because they had writings of this catastrophic event. So in 1819, so they started making this National Museum in Naples, and in 1819 King Francis visited this museum, and he was so embarrassed. So he had his daughters with him, and he was so embarrassed by this artwork that they found that he said, lock this stuff up. So they actually locked it up, and it wasn't until 2000 that they opened up all this art for viewing.
So what kind of wall anchors did they like? Holy Toledo, man. That was a big history lesson right there.
Is it too much of a tangent?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, more modern, into the 1600s, you know how pictures were hung in most homes? They hung it above eye level, and they affixed the bottom of a picture, and they would use rope or cord, and they would tilt the top downward, so as you looked up, you could view it really nice. So that was popular in the 1600s. In the 1700s, what was popular with decorators hanging pictures on walls was doing everything in groups. So they would want a variety of pictures all grouped together, and they would display them like that.
It's like your mom.
Yeah, my mom, but she became an antique dealer. Well, she just has mass, like let's cover every square inch of the wall. So there's a lot of ways we can hang things on the wall, and you know, something as simple as just putting a nail into the wall in an angle is okay for light pictures. Most professionals recommend that you put the nail at a 30 degree angle downward, and that gives it the most strength in drywall. But anything with weight on it can actually pull it out if it's not in a stud. So one thing you can do is try to find a stud, and you can use a stud finder. If you're using a stud finder, what you're doing is you're finding the edges of the stud, and then you're going to mark the middle from that. One nice stud finder you can get, it's called a Franklin stud finder, and that actually shows you the whole stud. But with a stud finder...
You did a nice video on that?
Yeah, so on our Fix It Home Improvement channel on YouTube, we did a couple nice videos for stud finders. If you don't find a stud, though, you want to be careful, because a lot of this packaging, you really need to look at it. So if you look at a wall anchor and you're hanging something, it might say 50 pounds, but in small print, you're going to see something like, based on this hanger being nailed into a stud. So, you know, it's really not 50 pounds with just bare drywall. Many of the anchors, though, are going to give you the rating in just drywall, so you really need to look at it. You know, you have to be careful also with plaster. You know, when I was investing in real estate, a lot of my tenants, you know, they would call and say, hey, you know, I've hung this picture 2 or 3 times and it just keeps coming out of the wall. And we had a lot of the old houses that were plaster walls. And if you have very old plaster, if you're trying, so a few of my tenants, what they would do is they'd find a big screw, and they would just try to screw it into the plaster. And you can actually knock out chunks of the plaster like that. And then what would happen sometimes is they would just take a large nail and pound it straight into a wall. And if you hang anything heavy, because I had a couple tenants who had very big, heavy wood frames, and it just wouldn't stay in the wall because the weight of that would loosen up the nail. It would create a larger hole, and if you're pounding that nail straight in, it's just going to pull it off. Most of the professionals, like at art galleries, suggest using a wall anchor that's rated at least 30 pounds. And then you really need to weigh what you're hanging on the wall. So you can use a bathroom scale, put your artwork on it. Let's say you have a mirror, especially a big, thick, heavy mirror with a wood frame. They can be well over 30 pounds. And so then it's very important that you're using 2 of these hangers. So if you have one hook that's rated at 30, if you have, let's say, a wire on the back of this and you're using 2 hooks, now you can carry 60 pounds in the case of a 30-pound rated hook.
Didn't we do a video on hanging that big mirror?
Yes, yeah, and we actually did that on a really interesting tool hanging tool. One of the highest rated hangers are called Floret Hangers, so it's Floreat, and these are designed in Germany, and they have tempered hooks. So you've got this hook, and then you have these tempered nails that go into it at an angle, and depending on how much weight it carries, you're going to have 1, 2, or 3 of these tempered nails, and they have these small knurled brass heads, so it's very easy to pull them out and move it if you ever have to. And what's nice is they make very small holes in the wall.
I think with talking about hanging stuff on your wall, if you're live in an apartment, you have to see what your landlord allows you to do. Because
smart.
Some people will allow you to use that adhesive, like 3M command strips or the Funtac. But like my sister, when she moved to her new apartment, they won't let you use that.
Really?
They'd rather you put a hole in the wall.
Funny. So like Funtac, so it's this blue, sticky, almost like a putty, that if you have real light posters, you just put a little in each corner and you stick it to your wall. And it's not supposed to leave a residue. And then 3M has these command strips. So it's 2-sided removable strips. One side sticks to the wall. The other side sticks to, let's say, a picture that you're hanging. And then it's held together with almost like a Velcro. But it's actually like little plastic beads that are interlocking when you push them together. And then when you want to remove these strips from the wall, there's a tab on the bottom of the strip that you pull, and as you apply pressure, it pops that whole adhesive strip off. And again, they claim that it doesn't leave any residue.
Yeah, I've used it. I think they're great.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So if you're looking at something lightweight, you don't want to put holes in the wall, you can get these 3M command strips. They come in 1, 2, and 3 pound strips. Then if you have a picture that's a little heavy, you just add more strips. So if you have, 6 of these 3 pound strips on the sides of your frame, you can actually carry quite a bit of weight. And then these command strips also have strips that hold a sawtooth hanger or a wire back hanger. And like the wire back hanger will actually hold up to 8 pounds. So really nice for apartments and dorms, but I think you made a good point. Find out from your landlord what they recommend. So another type of wall anchor that you can use for very light pictures is called the monkey hook. And it's a J-shaped, real thin piece of steel wire. And it's shaped so you can grab this almost like a tool. So it's self-piercing, and it makes a very small hole, so very easy to replace. So if you're hanging a picture and you just need one hook, you grab this piece of steel and you turn it into the wall, and it's going to pierce a hole. You push this little U-shaped loop inside the wall, and what it's going to do is it's going to reach up and touch the drywall, and then the bottom of the hook is wedging against the front of the drywall. Inside, the other end of the hook is pushing inside the drywall, and so it wedges itself and it distributes the weight. So actually these little hooks, I think the small monkey hooks carry about 30 pounds, and then they have a larger hook.
The gorilla hook.
The gorilla hook, and it carries 50 pounds. So it's very simple to use. You don't need any tools, and it makes a very small hole. So,
which we did a video on this, and I love the monkey hook.
Right.
It's so easy to use.
Yeah, it's nice. You don't need any tools, no drills. Where a lot of anchors, you need it.
Well, when the inventor first came out with it, the whole thing was he had a monkey on the video doing it.
So easy, even a monkey can do it, yeah.
So.
Do you think the monkey really did it?
Yes.
There you go. It's that easy. You heard it from Cindy.
But the monkey hook is excellent because the end of it actually has a hook on it.
Yeah, it's a small, nicely shaped hook.
Where, like, my dad, whenever he hangs anything, is he always puts a nail in the wall. So,
Right.
like, going back in the fall when it was time to change the clocks for daylight, savings time, there's a clock above the desk, and so he wanted me to climb up on the stool because he couldn't get it,
Right.
to reach it to change the clock. So I'm trying to reach over the desk on the step-on stool. He's like, I'm gonna spot you. So I can't see where the hole is on the back of the clock. I can't see where the nail is. So
Right.
he's like trying to tell me, okay, he's lining it up, and he's holding onto the desk at this point, not to me.
Right.
So again, I'm stretched over the desk trying to line this up, and the nail just kept going into the drywall.
Right,
Where the monkey hook, it would actually grab the clock.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, that was terrible. I almost fell like 3 times. And again, he's holding onto the desk. I'm like, what are you doing?
Your dad must not watch any of our videos. And what's nice about the monkey hook too, you can use multiple hooks. So if you're hanging something heavy, and let's say you're using a wire on the back of that, then you can put 2 monkey hooks and really carry quite a bit of weight.
So if you decide that you want to use a wall anchor, when you're standing in that aisle, it is overwhelming.
Yeah, a million different things to choose from. The packaging is
Employees
confusing.
hate going down that aisle because you get sucked in there, and you're in there all day.
So there's a few key ones though, and we'll cover the core main wall anchors for hanging something in drywall and you can't find a stud. So the very basic one is the little blue or green wall anchors that everyone sees. It's shaped like a wedge, and you have to drill a hole. If you don't drill the correct size hole and it's sloppy, it's not going to do the job. And you need to make sure that you match the right size screw to it. So for very light loads, I would suggest anything under 10 pounds, the plastic wall anchors are fine. They have a smooth or a slightly ribbed body, and you're going to have to drill a hole in. Usually it's going to be 3/16 or 5/32. You pre-drill this hole, you tap in this plastic anchor, and then you're going to use a matched size screw, so a number 6 or a number 8, let's say, and as you screw it into this wall anchor, it expands, it blows out the end of it, and it wedges it into the drywall. So most people are going to have 1/2-inch drywall. The tip opens further than that, and so now the anchor is wedged in there.
So if you're purchasing, like, let's say a towel bar, or these are the type that comes with it.
Right, exactly. That's what you'll normally see in the kits. And the better ones are ribbed or barbed. They're going to give you the best strength. So if you have, let's say, a towel bar or a toilet paper holder that you just purchased, a lot of times these smooth anchors over time, especially if you hang heavy wet towels on these bars, they will pull off. And again, from years of investing in real estate and having tenants, the amount of times I've gone back to these homes and had to reinstall these, because when I first started, I didn't know. I figured if this came with the kit,
of course,
it's got to be what to use. And so, we'll talk about some of the other ones, but for very light projects, like for smoke detectors or pictures that are very light, under 10 pounds, they do a fine job. They're easy to install. They work well. The key, though, is making sure that you're drilling a hole that's matched to that size. The next type of wall anchor that I think every homeowner should have in their toolbox are threaded drywall anchors. And these are a wedge shape. They either come plastic or metal, and it almost looks like a screw with coarse threads with a hole in the center. There's 2 styles. One has a little bit of a tip where you can pound that tip till you reach the first threading, and then you take a Phillips screwdriver and you screw this down flush with the drywall. Or there's a style that just is threaded all the way down. You take a Phillips screwdriver, it's self-tapping right into the drywall, and then you have to take a fitted screw, so either a number 6 or a number 8 screw, and that's what you're going to use to hang things off of. What's nice about this is they're very easy to put in. They make a little bigger hole, so if you ever were to remove this, you're going to have to patch a slightly bigger hole, but they just carry a lot of weight. Very easy to use. You don't have to pre-drill. The plastic ones, for the most part, carry about 50 pounds, and then they have a couple different styles. A couple of the new styles, the tip breaks off and goes off at an angle, and so it wedges against the drywall from behind, and that'll actually carry over 75 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So just a very nice wall anchor. I think this is something that everybody should have. Whenever I do towel bars, this is what I use. So, in fact, one of the videos we did on our YouTube channel, it was funny. Again, they came with the regular plastic anchors, the smooth ones,
right,
and they gave you 4 of those. And those, again, they don't carry that much weight. If you screw up on the size of your hole, they can loosen very quickly. So I put 4 of these in, and each one carries 50 pounds. So if you're putting heavy, wet towels on top of this bar, it's just going to stay up, it's going to be solid, and you're really going to have a professional look, and very easy to install.
And you don't need a drill.
And you don't need a drill. So I think these are some of the basic type of anchors that every homeowner should use.
Is this your favorite type of anchor?
I would say out of my wall anchors, this is my favorite style, yes. Another type of wall anchor you can get is a Molle bolt, and these will normally be called hollow wall anchors.
Why are they called Molle bolts?
So that was the original trade name, kind of like Kleenex. So now the style is called Molle bolt. But it really creates a threaded hole. And what's interesting is you have to create a pilot hole that's sized for this wall anchor. It's a long threaded tube that has perforations in it. So you tap this in, the head grabs the outside of the drywall, and then inside you've got to take this machine bolt, you put it into this anchor, and you start to tighten it. This is before you put anything on the wall. You tighten this up, and at the bottom there's this little section of solid threaded metal that starts pulling back, and these legs unfold and they wedge themselves against the back of the drywall. So you've basically created this anchor that's wedged on both sides of the drywall. The unique thing about Molle bolts is you have to get the right size for whatever material you're working in. So if you're working in 1/2-inch drywall, you need to get one that has a grip range of 1/2 inch. Otherwise, it's not going to do the job properly.
How would you know?
So you have to read the package, and it's going to tell you how much weight it's going to carry. And
no, I meant how would you know what size drywall that you have?
Most people are going to have 1/2 inch. I would say if you started with that, in most homes, you're going to be okay. But if you have an older home and you have plaster, then you need to create a core. you need to drill a little hole, or you need to kind of know your home. Like previously, if you've cut into the wall, you need to know that grip range. But most homes where it's just drywall, 1/2 inch is pretty common. And then what you have kind of a permanent threaded hole in your wall. And now you can run this bolt in and out of it, whenever you want to move or change the distance of that bolt that you're putting in, or the machine screw rather, that you're putting into this anchor. If you ever want to get rid of this hole and move it, then you have to either tap it through, and this Molle falls into the void in the drywall, or you can just tap it down, 1/4 of an inch, and then put some compound over the top of it. But they do a nice job. This was probably one of the more popular wall anchors for carrying heavy loads. Another big category of wall anchors are toggle bolts, and this is one of the traditional styles of anchor that really carried a lot of weight. And in fact, years ago, one of the only type of wall anchors rated for ceilings were toggle bolts. So a toggle bolt is going to have a cross piece behind the wall that's going to distribute that weight. The most common type of toggle had a spring-loaded wing that you would thread onto a bolt. You would squeeze them together. You're going to drill a hole specific for this toggle, push this wing through, the spring pops these open, and then you thread down your bolt, and that locks it against the back of the drywall. With this type of wall anchor, you have to put on either your anchor or, let's say, a hook onto the bolt first. Then you're going to thread on that toggle. You're going to push it through the wall, and then you're going to tighten it down so it all compresses together and distributes this weight. So, very good. It does a nice job. A little more complicated to use. It's not as easy as like these threaded anchors that they have now.
Right.
And
self-piercing and everything else.
Exactly. And when you were done with this, let's say you wanted to move it, when you unscrewed that bolt, that toggle just falls, behind the drywall. So
it's gone forever.
Yes. Yeah. But there's many new types
So everybody has a bunch of Molles and toggles.
Just piles of them in between the drywall. But if you look at the hardware store now, it is amazing, all these new styles of toggle anchors. So they have a blend of some of them are self-tapping with wings that unfold. There's flip toggles with very long plastic threaded sleeves. So they're much easier to use now, and it's they just carry a lot of weight. So if you see toggle, in general, these are your most secure type of wall anchors. So there's a few specialty anchors that you can get. And one thing we found out from when we were investing in real estate, when we had our tenants, they would want to put let's say a coat hook on the back of a door or something. If you have a hollow core door, you cannot use just a regular plastic anchor. And trust me, I've tried, and it doesn't work. But they have special hollow core door anchors, and some are called mini Molle bolts. So they have a 1/4-inch grip range, and these legs spread inside the door, and it just locks down nice, and it squeezes in between here because, if that thin, wood, I mean, it's almost like a heavy cardboard on some of these doors, at least some of the ones I had. And, you'll just tear it up if you don't use a specialized hollow core door anchor. And they do a real nice job, especially for lightweight robes and things. Again, depending on where you are, if you're thinking about in your own home, though, carrying heavy, wet towels, I would use something on the wall rather than on a door because you can damage the door. And then for mirrors, let's say you have wall-mounted frameless mirrors. They have specialized mirror clips, so you can either get them in plastic or metal. The metal ones usually have real nice padding or felt on this, so the mirror sets on this. But if you have, some of the older styles too, they'll have holes in the mirror,
right.
And then you need a special rosette that goes. It's a plastic protection, basically. It's decorative, and it protects the mirror against the bolt that's going through there or the screw that's going through there, and then you'd use a very heavy-duty anchor inside the drywall. Now, if you're doing anything in masonry, you're going to need special masonry anchors, and they come in a couple styles. If you don't want to use an anchor at all, you can get Tapcon screws. So it's Tapcon, and these are fantastic. In dry areas, let's say you're working in an area and you have concrete block, or if you have concrete that's inside, there's no inserts, there's nothing to put in, you just pre-drill, and you're going to have concrete masonry drill bit. You're going to pre-drill a specific size for the size Tapcon, and then you can screw these screws. They're self-threading into the concrete. They just do a great job. We've used them on a couple of our projects when we were building partition walls, like in a couple of our hardware stores. And then there's plastic anchors. In fact, if you're drilling into concrete and you need an anchor just to hold something light, that's when you see these straight sleeves. Like a lot of times in the anchor aisle, a lot of people don't know what the straight sleeved pieces of plastic are, and that's for concrete. So it goes in straight, it's ribbed, and as you put a screw into that, it expands and it wedges itself, again, for lightweight loads. And then they have lead anchors, they have lag shields, it's a 2-part hinged body. But what you're looking for is something specifically designed for masonry if you're going into any type of concrete or concrete block.
So another place that you're going to use a wall anchor is on ceramic tile?
Right.
So what do you got to say?
Well, you need to make sure that you're using the specific bit to go through ceramic tile. In most cases, in the hardware store, you're going to see something that says glass and ceramic tile. It's a drill bit that it has a tip that's spear-shaped, and you want to go slow with this. So if you have a cordless drill, you have a fast speed and a slow speed. You're going to want to use the slow speed for this, and you definitely want to mist it with water. So this is a nice place where you would have a helper with a spray bottle, and they're just spraying a mist as you're using this. You're using slow speed. You're going through with medium pressure. You don't want to put too much pressure, because if you catch the ceramic tile sometimes wrong, it can crack it.
Right.
So you need to have slow, medium pressure, a little bit of water on there as you're doing it, and then you're using a bit specifically designed for this. There's also a couple diamond tip hole saws, and again, you need to make sure that it says ceramic tile on it. And some of these will go through ceramic, porcelain, granite, glass, but it's very important that you have something specific because, again, when I first started, what's wild is when I first started, I was using a regular masonry bit because they say you can use it on ceramic too. But if you use it on high speed and you're trying to go through here with no misting, I've had the tips turn bright red and just snap off. So it's really kind of a feel for the right amount of pressure and speed.
So that's good to know. Well, I guess you could have brought that up in our drill bit episode, but I asked about wall anchors for a tile.
Well, let's say if you're putting up something like a grab bar, so a safety grab bar in a shower, then you're going to need to use an anchor specific for that. Because if you don't hit a stud, you need an anchor that's going to carry a lot of weight. So usually it's going to be a toggle style. So Moen, in fact, uses for their grab bars, you actually have to drill 1.25 inch hole for their toggle, but their toggle is so wide and it distributes so much force that, it's ADA compliant. And then Wingits, this is a new one that I haven't tried yet. It's Wingits. It's called their Master Anchor, and they say that each anchor can carry 300 pounds.
Wow.
So fascinating. It has these folding legs. You push through a hole, you have to create a hole specific to the anchor. These legs pop out from behind this, and it carries a lot of weight.
Because that's what I don't think people think about. That when you're using these grab bars, especially with older people, you're putting all your weight on it, or there's the possibility that you're putting all your weight on it.
Sure, if they were to trip and all their weight's on it, it creates a lot of force.
Well, it's like in my grandma's shower that they just built. She sits in a chair when she takes a shower, so when she gets up, she has a grab bar there that,
so all her weights,
right,
yeah, so it's very important. And in fact, we've seen a few, like at the hardware store, where they are just cheap-looking anchors. Right. And so, I would say this is one area where you'd kind of want to go a little bit of overkill. Yeah, so try to find a stud. If you can't find a stud, then I would suggest searching one of these toggle-style anchors that are going to carry a lot of weight. So I'll share a couple tips on hanging heavy pictures and mirrors. And one thing homeowners have a struggle with sometimes are the D-rings that are designed to hold something heavy. So this is a metal tab that has a ring on it, shaped kind of like a D, and you need to screw this to the back of, let's say we're hanging a heavy mirror. You're going to have a wood frame. You're going to want to put these D-rings pointing toward the center. So you can either go perpendicular and point them at each other towards the center, or they can be up at like a 45 degree angle pointing in, and you're going to screw that into the wood. So you're going to want to pre-drill with a bit about half the width of the screw that you're using, making sure that the screw isn't going to come out the front of the frame. And you're going to put these two D-rings about 1/3 of the height down from the top. A lot of the art dealers recommend that you put a couple felt pads on the bottom corners on the inside, and that cushions it, especially if you have a heavy mirror or heavy picture. It cushions it, keeps it from sliding around.
Oh, that's smart.
Also, if you have really good quality artwork, it allows air circulation.
Oh.
And then you're going to want to run a wire in between those D-hooks. Rather than string, which is going to stretch over time, wire is going to hold it, be solid. You can weave that, thread it through the D-ring, and then twist it off, and it's going to be nice solid. And you want that to be about 2 inches down. So when you string this from one side and string it through the other D-hook, you're going to want to hold that wire and tighten it until it's just about 2 inches lower than the top of the frame. And then you're going to twist that off. And that's kind of how you would tie your wire on the back of a heavy mirror. Depending on how you want to hang it on the wall, if you're going to use one hook, now you're going to measure the center of this, you're going to measure down, and you're going to use the bottom of the hook when you're making your mark on the wall.
Right.
If you want to use two hooks, one of the tricks that we always used was to take a little scrap piece of wood. So let's say our picture is, 2 feet wide. I would take maybe a 6-inch scrap of wood and I would push it up on the bottom of that wire, and now the two edges of that wood are going to tighten that wire, and now you can measure down from the top and where the edges of that wood is, and that's where I'm going to make my marks so I know exactly how far down from the top. Because if you use one hook, it's going to be much higher, that wire. Right. If you use two hooks, that wire's down lower. So a little scrap of wood was always a good trick for us. And then I would always use a spirit level on that, just to make sure that my line is good before I put... You know how they got the name spirit level?
Nope.
So the air bubble that's trapped in that little glass vial in a level. So the very first, and they still do it this way, but the very first levels, they used alcohol. So spirits. Oh. So that's why it was called a spirit level.
That tool that we had, what was the name of it? It's for the hanging pictures.
So it's called Hang It Perfect. And we met the inventor at one of the hardware shows. Yeah,
well, it does
cool.
a great job.
Yeah,
I mean, it's super easy to use, and all your pictures are the same height.
Yeah, so my mom, I helped her, like,
Yeah.
she had like all her pictures,
Oh,
like
we
all
did
at
a
different
video
height.
of it. I mean, it was chaos.
But it's a pretty cool tool because it has almost like it has a level built in, but it has, the main body of this you put on the top of your frame, and then it has two little arms. So you can either take one arm off if you're only using one wall anchor. You can measure exactly where it's going to go, and then there's a little pin that's on this tool, so you make a mark on your wall, and you know exactly where to put your hook. And then, and then it's level. If you're using two hooks, then you have these two arms. It makes two little holes. In fact, another video that we did with this tool, we had that real heavy mirror. We're working on this 100-year-old house that they're rehabbing.
Ugh.
They were hanging a really heavy mirror, and there were two holes in the back of the frame. So it had little metal areas where it had holes in the back. And so we had to line these holes up perfect to two screws that we put in anchors into the wall. And this thing just did a fantastic job because I was able to line up those holes, flip that tool over, and mark it on the wall just perfect. So really a nice tool.
That was a great video. It was so hot that day.
Yeah, it was terrible.
You could like see the sweat dripping off me.
Yeah, it was pouring off me, man.
I was so scared we were going to drop that mirror.
Slide out of my wet, slimy hands. Yeah. So one other tool you can get, let's say that you don't have a drill or you don't want to go through the expense and you want to hang pictures. There's a picture hanging system that we tried this tool. It's called Tacker, Takker, and this has an integrated drill bit, and they have their own anchors. So you put this device on the wall, and it has this built-in drill bit that you turn a hand crank like the old-fashioned drills. It creates the hole that's perfectly sized for these anchors, and then their anchors have a variety of different hooks you can put on. You can just use that anchor itself.
What an easy way to do that.
Yeah, and then, in fact, I did this video with my son, and we were outside, and so I put a hole in the concrete on the outside, so in between the mortar, the bricks on the outside of the hole.
For any purpose, or you just wanted to
and
make
I just
a
wanted
hole?
to see if it worked. So, because it says it'll create holes in, drywall, wood, or concrete, and it did a really nice job, so kind of a multi-purpose drill bit.
So you want to wrap this up?
So the key thing is to know the weight of whatever you're hanging. If you're not going into a stud, make sure you get an anchor that's rated heavy enough. And then I really love these self-tapping anchors. I think that every homeowner should have a handful in their toolbox. Make sure you have the screws that are matched to it.
All right, so I think that's it.
If you'd like to subscribe to our podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.